Whether you sell to big or small, today Jason Lowe will tell all. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Mr. Jason Lowe. Jason is a little bit of a departure from our normal guests. He is the VP of Sales at a pretty big company, and we get into how running a big company, how reaching out to the larger enterprises is similar, yet different, yet similar to selling to smaller companies. Or if you are a small company, how you can still sell to these bigger companies, and how you probably even have an advantage of reaching out to these bigger corporations when you are a smaller, one of the SMB clients, shall we say. So a PR firm reached out to me about him. I looked things over, and I liked what I saw, and I'm glad that he came on the show. So you're in for a treat. As always, the show notes and links, everything is on the podcast, or it's on the blog. And I've got all the links there as well. If you're listening to this online at my website, scroll on down. You can subscribe: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio. Somebody shot me a screenshot not too long ago, and they found me on iHeartRadio. So that was kind of cool. If you're finding me out there that way, please share the findings in the wild. Let me know you're out there, and I appreciate it. I've been talking about as well the relaunch of the live 7-week course on the Make Every Sale program. I'm doing some webinars to promote that. It's a free webinar, and it's webinar.makeeverysale.com. And we're going to be doing that, like I said, live, at least 7 calls. I'm going to add on 2, maybe 3 office hours at the end. So that is 7 structured calls. We go through the workbook, help you map things out, and then I'll be taking a couple of calls a week apart just to answer any questions you might have. Because the idea is for you to learn something, then go apply it. Go succeed with it, and honestly, go fail with it. You learn from your failures. Every day I'm failing at jiu-jitsu. I'm getting tapped out. My guard is getting passed. I just got promoted to blue belt. So now they're doing wrist locks on me, and they're attacking the feet and the legs, and every day I fail. And when I fail to stop an attack, when I fail to finish an attack, I then sit and meet with someone with more experience, and I learn how to defeat those issues, how to overcome them. And just like you can't become a black belt overnight, you're not going to become a black belt in sales overnight. You've got to go out and be willing to apply yourself and do these things. It's the old adage: anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you get good at it. Everybody wants this immediate, instant gratification, and it just doesn't work. Whatever gives you immediate results probably has some severe, long-lasting side effects, like a Google slap, like getting de-indexed, like any of these other drugs they give you see online. Yes, maybe you get a little bit of a pick-me-up immediately, but there's always something. When the side effects are longer and more severe than what it actually is supposed to be helping, you probably should stay away from it and find another way. So that's where the Make Every Sale program comes in. You get immediate access to the courses, to the 41 videos, the workbook, all the bonuses, but then we're going to do 7 live calls with me starting in early July. And then the plan is to do that several times a year. I know that's how I got started. And I know everyone likes to have some type of guidance, some type of interaction, helps you stay on track. And having the on-demand stuff is great. And I want and need you to go through it. But being able to show up each week and ask questions every day in the private group is going to help you get better. My goal is to make money, of course, but it's not to make money at all costs. I know you'll have better results if you have live interaction. And so that's why I'm bringing it back. And so check that out, all right? MakeEverySale.com is the program. You don't even have to go to the webinar. You go sign up right now, and I'll invite you to the 7-week live course. And you can participate in the future live courses. So there's no limit, right? You can sign up right now, go through it in July. If I do it again in September, October, you're welcome to re-participate. Okay, just get a little pick-me-up, a little refresher. Because of course things will change over time, and while the selling does not change, human to human, that never has changed. But of course, the technology may change a little bit. So as they change, I'll sprinkle in things about podcasting, videos, SMS marketing, whatever is going on. But the core is always sales training. Okay. So join the webinar if you'd like, webinar.makeeverysale.com, or just enroll, makeeverysale.com. Now let's bring on our guest, Jason Lowe, all the way from LA. I think I can see you over the mountains if there wasn't like a little residual forest fire. Welcome to Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
Wes, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So you are my second big company guy. It's not normal, but I'm kind of digging it. You're the global head of sales solutions with Enablement, right?
That's right.
You're targeting, you said before we turn on the recorder, the Fortune 2000 or the Global 2000 type companies?
Yeah, as an organization, so our target market are primarily the Global 2000 as well as the high growth smaller startups as well. So we certainly do a lot of business with organizations in the SMB and the mid-market space, but our bread and butter and the organizations that we're typically selling the most to are those Global 2000s.
So what have you seen over the years? I mean, you came from Oracle, right? And you carried a bag before you were in management. What have you seen? Let's not say what has changed. What has stayed the same? What is the same from 10 or 20 years ago? You're carrying a bag. Now you're targeting these super big companies. What's the same in growing a company, in reaching these decision makers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so much has changed. I think what is the same? So we're still out there as reps, and we're still trying to make our number, right? We still have our mortgage to pay. We're still trying to pay for retirement. And so trying to find those things, and so trying to find the motivations and leaning into those motivations. So there are a lot easier jobs in the world of business than sales, right? But the reason we have sellers is because we make it worth their while. And so trying to find those ways to incent them and motivate them. And I say that's a consistent challenge that I've seen across the years. The technologies have changed for it, and the protocols have changed, but the ability or the need to get people to do things that they wouldn't necessarily do if left to their own devices, and finding ways to motivate and push them. And then it's just a matter of finding the better mousetrap with respect to new tips and techniques and tools and ways to increase those efficiencies.
Are these executives at bigger companies, are they harder to reach now than 10 years ago? Are they easier to reach?
I'd say it's really the same. I mean, it's about, look, if you can go in and it's about building a value proposition. It's about having that interest creating device and opening the door and getting in to meet with your clients. And if you say something that is provocative, say something that speaks to a universal truth, and that you're able to deliver on it, I think that there's always an opportunity to build value. I mean, I'll say that there are more with email and social media, there are different disciplines. And so there's otherwise things or gates or thresholds you may have to try to cross through. But the needs are the needs, and the challenges of large organization people and the challenges when you're just starting out and building a business, I mean, they're really similar. At the end of the day, you see stuff that's broken, and you need to figure out ways like what's the better way to build something, or the better way to optimize something, or to get my soldiers to march in lockstep together.
Right. So when you say provocative, like how provocative can you be calling on the president of North American sales for some global 2000 company?
Well, so provocative is in the sense that, I mean, it has to resonate. It has to come every time that I'll have a conversation. I'm invited in to speak with a senior leader. I mean, so senior leaders at organizations, big and small, have great BS meters, right? And they can filter out what's real and what's not real. By provocative, I mean what's real and what's genuine and what's, again, I go back to this idea of a universal truth. Like, find the things, and that's, I know working with our marketing department here at Anaplan from an organizational standpoint, it's about when we build messaging, it's finding those things that speak to the universal truth that are unique to you as an organization and yet defensible. I mean, because if you go in and are big hat, no cattle, and then you can't deliver on it, then you're going to burn bridges, right? So coming in from a position of strength and being able to have those conversations.
Oh, are you saying don't lie?
I'm saying absolutely don't lie. But also when you go in and talk to the senior leaders, right, it's do your homework, right? So, I mean, so many times when I work with our account executives and our regional vice presidents, look, if it's a publicly traded company, read the 10K, do as much research online, read about what they're doing, not only the public information that they produce, but then I'll also go to Glassdoor and read just what employees are saying, get vibes, because at the end of the day, you want to come in and you want to be knowledgeable, and you want to minimize the number of surprises. And the more you can walk a mile in their shoes and understand the inner workings of the culture and how they behave, then the better you can find out, one, do you have a solution set that you're going to be aligned to meet their needs? And then second of all, do you have something that's going to be able to resonate with them?
Right. What is like one methodology or a book that has stuck with you all along? Because you're talking about asking good questions or, being informed. I'm thinking of like spin selling, it's
Sure.
been around for a couple of decades. I think it's still applicable, but do you have like a go-to or maybe a core book or methodology that you find still resonates today?
I mean, spin selling is a classic. I love that one. There's Cracking the Sales Management Code. I've always enjoyed that, written by Jason Jordan a number of years ago. All the Challenger Sales. I mean, there's a number of. There's so many great insights into human behavior and seeing how people perform and how people behave. I think that you can glean from that from plenty of books, but certainly Spin Selling, Cracking the Sales Management Code. Some of those guys are things that I've read multiple times over the years.
Right. And you're finding them, they're just still applicable.
Sure, but I think what happens is they themselves are universal truths, but as I transcend through my career, I can then I take different things out of it based on where I am from the trajectory of my profession.
Right. How did you prepare to be a sales leader and make that transition from being a salesperson?
Sure. So that's a great question. So in the universe that I play in right now, so I am the global head of sales solutions here at Anaplan. And so what I have responsibility for as a business unit are those applications that are related to sales and marketing. And so I started off, in sales, and I've been off and on through sales, both as a prime and as well as a co-prime, as well as in pre-sales functions. But I've also dabbled on the product side and the business side. And so it's just been, for me, and it was an evolution. And so as this market of sales performance management applications came out, which is really tools to manage the go-to-market strategies for your organization, because I'd had a wider breadth of solutions, plus been on the technology side, it had the opportunity to evolve into this type of role.
Did you have like formal training? Have you had good or bad training? What I typically see, at least in the smaller companies, is that the top performing salesperson gets promoted to manager, mm-hmm. and then all of the skill sets, or a lot of the skill sets that made them a great salesperson, lone wolf, aggressive, competitive, blah, 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 really work against them as a manager.
Sure.
And companies end up shooting themselves in the foot. Is there a good sales management program, or is it ever advisable to maybe bring someone from the outside so you don't lose your best salesperson who also makes you lose your next top 3 salespeople?
Yeah, so I talk to clients about this a lot of times, because it's interesting to the point you bring up is that if a rep is typically a rock star seller, and they're like, yes, we want more of that. And so you then promote someone to a management role, whereas the skill set that they were successful in was individual contributor, taking down my number. And then all of a sudden you're a coach, and you're a coach in an environment where it's very similar to a sports coach, right? Where you have lots of players on a team who all have different talents. And the job and the responsibility of the coach is try to find ways to bring the best capabilities and the best performance out of each of your players who play different positions and are different talent levels and what have you. And there is a bit of a jump with that. I mean, certainly understanding that the skill set of just being the guy that can bring down your number, whether you be a lone wolfer or what have you, does not necessarily translate. And so it's about getting that both from a mentorship perspective, as well as bringing in third-party people to help you become that type of sales leader.
Is it kind of the same as being in sales? I mean, when I was carrying a bag, right, W-2 guy, I mean, I laid the foundation for the sales whisperer without even realizing it, because I'm like, I always wanted to get better. I was buying books. I was attending courses. If my company wouldn't pay for it, I'd pay for it. Is it kind of the same for sales management? You kind of have to develop yourself, or in the larger enterprise, larger companies, are you seeing a more well-defined path, where they're nurturing salespeople, grooming you to handle bigger roles?
Well, I think that there's certainly mentor programs as people move through leadership at bigger companies, certainly. But it's important to realize that the requirements of the job that sales leadership has to do is very different than the job of a seller, right? Because as a seller, what I'm responsible for is the day-to-day operations of reaching out to accounts and making contacts there and finding leads and opportunities and prosecuting those things. As a sales leader, typically, I mean, shadowing and micromanaging number of emails sent, number of voicemail left, I mean, that's not really helping me drive my business, because as a sales leader, what I'm responsible for is the future vision of the organization. Where is my company going to be 12 months from now, 24 months from now, 36 months from now? And so for me, as sales leadership, you're then more akin to things like, what does my universe look like? Like, how are we going to go to market? Is it a geo-based alignment? Is it by industry? Is it by revenue segments? Who are the prospects? If I'm in the wealth management space, am I going after do I want my clientele to be oil barons and baronesses? Do I want it to be .com billionaires? Do I want it to be working class people who are saving for retirement and saving for their kids' college? Right. So it's understanding, working with the finance teams to figure out what are the targets, what are the quotas or the milestones or those things. And so the responsibility of sales is blocking and tackling day-to-day, hand-to-hand combat of winning deals. But sales leadership is certainly a mentorship and making sure you're getting the best out of each of your players. But it's also building the go-to-market strategy and building the future of your organization and building out, are all my chess pieces in the right alignment or in the right spaces so that we can take down this market effectively?
Yeah. How can sales managers push back on the bosses? I see this all the time. A very good friend of mine I've known for almost 20 years, top producer in a very big company that you would know.
Sure.
He was literally their number one guy last year. Walked across the stage, set records, 300% of quota. And now they give him a new quota, and they expect him to do that same 300% plus another 30%, even though that 300% was like 2 or 3 years in the making, right? It was like a once in a lifetime deal, or at least once in a 5-year deal, because it's big technology.
Yep.
So now he's literally, I've known this guy almost 20 years. I mean, the most diligent human being I've ever known. And he's like, he's coasting. He's coasting until they fire him. Yeah. Because it's so insurmountable, the quota that they gave him. How come managers don't push back and protect top guys like that?
So, and that is critical, right? It's about connecting the top down and the bottom up, right? So the top down is, look, senior leadership creates their goals and the objectives for the year. They say, these are our financial plans and our revenue plans for the organization. And then they get those numbers and then they cascade it down to the theaters and then to the geos and then to the individual, eventually to the frontline sales managers, down to the reps. Then there's the bottom up, right? The bottom up is, look, I used to give this example is, look, if I'm the rep of New York City, right? New York City, beautiful city, very metropolitan, has a lot of opportunities, a very rich territory. And I compare that to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City, also a beautiful city, but it's not arguably as much potential as maybe something you find in New York City. And so part of this is it's having this conversation as you're going through the quota setting process and the cascading of top down and bottom up. It's understanding things like we call this account segmentation, but it's understanding what is the total addressable market. Because I'll tell you, if I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, let's say, and I have 90% penetration into my account and I killed it last quarter or last fiscal year, and then which means I have 90% penetration. Let's say I'm just doing lands. I'm not doing expands or renewals. I'm just landing business. So that means I only have 10% of the market left. Whereas if I'm another place that brought in the same revenues, like say New York City, and I have 10% penetration, I still have 90%. I still have room to grow. So part of this, as part of a management process that hopefully with senior leadership, it's this cascading top down and bottom up process where you understand things like the TAM, right? The total addressable market for a particular region, a particular geo, as well as understanding the potential of each of the accounts that you have in those. And then it's a negotiation to figure out how you're going to, it's a push and pull. It's a negotiation between where top down meets bottom up and how to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've lived it and experienced it. One of my former bosses in high tech, he said one of his former bosses, going way back in the day, basically told him they structure the compensation so that every 3 years you have a good year.
Right.
And is that just the nature of the beast?
Well, I mean, I think what happens is it depends on how you're building out your. To be honest, it doesn't sound like it's an incentive compensation problem. It sounds like it's a quota problem, right? Because what happens is, let's say last year I killed it. And I've worked with colleagues like this as well in former companies where let's say last year you killed it. And they say, well, not only did you kill it, but we expect 30% more from you. So there's the last year plus 30% that they're going to give you. And then you're just going to be devastation for next year. Yeah. And then so you have to sit through and assuming you don't get riffed or fired and you still have a job at the end of that year. Then they say, okay, so the second year was horrible. And then what they'll do is then they'll reset your quotas 70% lower than it was before. And then it's finally going to be at an attainable spot that you can then go back. And so this is one of the things where I think when quotas are set, so a lot of times when people say they have incentive comp or commissioning problems, a lot of times it's a quota problem. And so a lot of times it's when you're setting your quotas and your targets, not by data. And I think this is a big thing from a transformation for an organization is you have to let the data and you have to let the numbers and you have to figure out ways to optimize that, to come up with that, because so many people do it based on gut feel, right? And institutional knowledge. And a lot of times you make some bad assumptions that way. And the risk you run is you can lose some really great reps in the process. And certainly because if the reps, because I mentioned earlier, right, reps are only there because you make it worth their while. And if your top reps who were top reps for you last year, if you have a problem with setting your quotas, that's going to lead to employee attrition, which is then going to, obviously you have a departure. You then have to fill those headcounts with to-be hires, and you're just going to lose some of your best people because your best people know that they can make a lot of money. So you have to help set them up for success.
So what do maybe smaller businesses not know about selling into big businesses? I think maybe some smaller businesses that have a good offering maybe shy away from selling into a larger, maybe even an enterprise account. Maybe they think they're too small, or they won't take them seriously, or they think, oh, that's the big ivory tower. I don't belong in there. I mean, what would a small business owner maybe be surprised about selling into the enterprise?
Well, so it's a mixed bag, I think, because certainly there is something as to, well, where have you done this before? And if you've not done this from a reference perspective, then there's a hesitation. But what I would say is that, look, people are people and problems are problems. Now, what happens is for some organizations, look, this may only be costing me $200,000 a year as a revenue leakage, where another organization, it might be $30 million or upwards of that as an organization. But so the impact or the amount of revenue behind it certainly can be different, but the problems are the problems. And what you're fundamentally doing is you're trying to, and all of us that go into business, what we're doing is we're trying to provide solutions that improve the performance of our customers or improve the benefit and create benefits for our customers. And so sometimes it's not if you're a couple person organization and you're trying to take down a Fortune 50, then certainly that as your first customer might be a steep hill to climb. But I think it's an incremental process where you sell to an organization that has 500 employees. And then once you've done that, then you then have the street cred to then sell to an organization that has 1,000 employees, then 2,000 employees. And so you build it from there, from a resume perspective, so that your references can get you there. But I will tell you that at the end of the day, organizations, it's about buying on value. And if you can provide value and if you have the widget or the thing that they need, and you're able to produce it and then sell it on them and then deliver on it. And that's so important. If you can deliver on that message and make them successful, then I think that's a way to accelerate your growth.
Right. So who are you going after? I see here on your LinkedIn, say, I solve complex problems, bring new products to market, launch new revenue streams. I mean,
Sure.
What is Enablement doing exactly?
Sure. So Enablement as a solution provider is in what we call the connected planning space. And what the connected planning space, what we're doing is we're connecting people and data to create the trusted plans that businesses need to win. And what we do is we're building these purpose-built solutions to connect people as well as their data that's required to create these dynamic and collaborative and intelligent plans that allow organizations to drive confidence in their business decisions. And so what I'm primarily working on is I work day in and day out with who I sell to are executive leaders running sales organizations, or who our customers are people that are running multinational sales organizations as well as marketing organizations. And so the solution set that we're providing is software solutions that enable sellers to manage their go-to-market strategies. Their go-to-market strategy, if you break it down, it really defines three things. It defines where you're going to sell, it defines how you're going to sell, and it defines what you're going to sell. And so where you're going to sell is how are you going to slice and dice your universes in order to figure out what is that go-to-market strategy, like we talked about a little bit earlier with territory plans or theaters or quota plans or capacity plans. So how many heartbeats do I need in my sales organization? And then the how to sell, the second leg of that tier or of that stool is how are you going to fundamentally motivate and incent your sellers to focus on those things that you as a business leader need them to focus on. It's basically helping them find the what's in it for me. And so we have solutions around commission programs and cash rewards, as well as non-cash, as well as basically incentive programs in order to drive those behaviors. And then the third tier of leg of the where to sell, how to sell, and what to sell. The what to sell is what are the products? What's the right size pipeline that I should have? Does it make sense? Especially when I have a sales organization that's a mix of sandbaggers and stretchers and lone wolves and happy ears. Like, how do I, going back to the analogy we talked about earlier, if I'm the coach of a football team or a basketball team and I have all these players with these different talents and these different skill sets, it's how do I know what the right size pipeline is? Because I'll tell you, it's not as easy as you need a 3X rolling pipeline or an 8X rolling pipeline. It depends. It depends on the personality types. It depends on behavioral economics and how your sellers behave. And so your sandbaggers, you may only need like a 1.8X rolling pipeline, but then your stretchers or your happy ears, you might need like a 15X, right? So it's understanding the what to sell of the pipeline management, the forecasting, and the pricing and discounting. So what Enablement is providing is this connected process across the enterprise to bring together people and data. And then for sales leaders, what we're providing is the tools that you need to build your go-to-market strategy.
So you mentioned sales performance management. I see that online. How is that related to sales enablement, which I'm hearing as a big buzzword lately?
Sure. So, I mean, they go hand in hand. So,
Okay.
so in the software world, so there's Salesforce automation. Salesforce automation are things like your leads and your opportunities and stuff like that. That's like, if you're familiar with Salesforce.com or Microsoft Dynamics or Sugar CRM, those are those types of solutions. Sales performance management are solutions a little more at the macro level, things that we were talking about, territory planning and carving out your universe to figure out like what's the right go-to-market strategy for you, as well as what are my quota plans? Should I be measuring based on revenues or quotas or number of units sold or margins or what have you, as well as getting people to perform. So tying in their incentive programs, their commission programs, spiffs, bonuses. That's the category of applications for sales performance management. And then sales enablement is really connecting a lot of those things by providing productivity tools, by providing training, by providing educational e-learning or learning management systems to provide people the coaching and the mentoring in order to understand where are the strengths and the weaknesses of your sellers. And so the three of these things together with it, sales enablement, Salesforce automation, and sales performance management, all are the trifecta of components to round out your larger sales strategies.
So to boil it down for mere mortals, it sounds like, I mean, basically companies can get just so big that just the momentum of the business may take them to a point where they're just doing things because they've just always done things that way.
Absolutely.
And you can kind of come in and say, you can ask the questions like, why? Why are you in that region? Why are you in that territory? Why do you bundle it that way?
Right.
And make them kind of understand, maybe with fresh eyes, like, oh, hell, kind of like IBM getting out of the PC business.
Sure.
Somebody like Anaplan probably came in and helped them say, you know what? Looking where this is going, you should probably sell that off and focus on services.
Well, it's about looking at the problem differently, right? Because, and this is where and it's a mix because subject matter expertise and gut feel and institutional knowledge is absolutely important, right? But it's also the one of the challenges organizations big and small have is we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And so taking a very data-driven perspective and being able to collect this information, because look, there's tons of data that you're able to collect about your customers, about your sellers, how effective, what are their win rates like, and looking at this data kind of prescriptively and looking at it via analytics and part of the Anaplan solution. One of the big components for us is artificial intelligence. So within artificial intelligence, it's prescriptive algorithms, there's advanced analytics, as well as things like machine learning and optimizations. So there's ways to take, and I don't want to get all nerdy and heady with all the technical jargon, but what it allows us to do is it allows us to look at the data in an unbiased way, because it's just human nature that we're going to look at things with some level of bias, right? Everyone's the hero of their own story and everyone sees the world from their perspective. And so it's about looking at it from an unbiased perspective and letting the data speak for itself, and then finding out how to marry your subject matter expertise and your institutional knowledge with the data that you're getting in order to figure out, is there a better way to build that mousetrap? Is there a better way to tackle your go-to-market strategy and to drive the performance in the future direction of your organization?
So you have the same issues that I would say even smaller businesses have, calling on small companies. In a way, you have to get somebody at your target account to admit that they can maybe do things better.
Certainly.
But get them to admit that without being accusatory, right? Mm-hmm. Not saying, hey, you're a bad person. You're a bad manager. Things are not great and it's all your fault. And it's like, no, it's not it at all. So how do you massage that, and say, hey, we can help you be better. And this will show how good and smart you are by bringing us in to help you be even gooderer and smarterer.
I could not have said that better myself. I mean, at the end of the day, that's your sales acumen, right? Every time, whether it be, and we were talking about this before we hit record, you will travel with your wife on maybe to casinos and travel around. And so there are always good ways and bad ways. When you're dealing with your kids or your spouse, you can tackle a situation and you can go full throttle and do something and sound very accusational. And then there's ways to do it with kid gloves. And so it's about, look, and again, this goes back to having a message and a story that's universal and there's a universal truth to it. And so finding that thing, what is that thing that you as an organization do better than anyone? Or what is that thing that you can help differentiate and you can help solve a real problem? And then you don't go in and say, you have a problem and you have to fix this, but you could go in and say, you know what? We've had the opportunity to work with a number of your peers or in similar industry or in similar business segments. And one of the things that they've told us is that they've seen challenges in X. Do you see challenges in the same way? And then so there's an easier way. So if you think of a weapon, every tool has a sharp end and a dull end. And so you don't necessarily need to stick people with the sharp end. You can come in and have a more consultative. And this is, again, goes back to sales acumen and selling styles, but being more consultative and less confrontational certainly is a good first step, especially when you want to go in and save and try to change something that's truly personal, right? Because there's no clearer reflection of a company's corporate culture than a lot of the decisions they've made. And so there's this idea of tradition, and we've done it this way because we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And so you need to go in and say, and that's great, and you have to celebrate that you've done it this way, but potentially there are other ways, or have you thought about this? There's ways to introduce it without being accusational, for sure.
So in other words, don't giggle at them, right? At least not in front of them.
And do not point and do not laugh in their faces. And yes, certainly. And yes,
all right.
For sure.
All right. Final question. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I cannot wait.
Or are you sitting down? You may want to stand up for that. I don't know. You should halfway, maybe kneel in a chair so you can be halfway kind of ready. Okay.
I've been standing in a squat position the entire time already, so I'm already well prepared.
So our listeners, if they're like me, they should seek counseling. But if they're like me, they are listening to this while driving. They're at the gym, maybe on a plane. And I don't want people just to listen to get a feel good. I want them to do something. I want them to take action. I want them to improve their sales and marketing lives as a result of listening to this. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we wrap things up, what would you recommend a sales professional listening to this? What should they do to move the needle in their business, for themselves, personally, professionally, either one or both?
Yeah. So I would say, it's a great question. I would say the first thing you can do as a sales leader within your organization when you're working with the other business leaders is try to take down the barriers that divide you. And the thing that I'll say about the reason I mean by this is, so think about your selling processes themselves, right? So if you're looking at how you go to market, I was talking about go-to-market strategies earlier, right? So if you go to market, typically you're going to have, I was talking about incentives. So you're going to have the comp team and the comp department that's involved in that process. And then you're going to have sales ops or sales finance in charge of quota setting process because it ties to your financial numbers. Then you're going to have sales leadership as part of the territory numbers, right? And you're going to have all these things and all these different departments that are setting this up. And by default, the word like comp department, finance department, sales ops department, sales department, the word department is a silo, right? And it's human nature that we want to look out for ourselves and look out for the best interests of our teams. But what happens is that when you make a decision in one part of the business, look, if we're going to if you're building out your organization, you have a head count. We talked about New York City earlier. Say you have a head count open in the New York metro area, and but you're going to hold off on hiring that spot for another quarter or two, right? Well, that decision from an HR perspective has direct implications from how you're going to cover it from a territory perspective, which then impacts how you're going to cover it from a finance perspective for your quotas, which then involves your sales comp, which then affects the revenues and your forecast and your pipelines. Like all of this stuff is interconnected. And so many times we set up these organizations with all these departments, and the departments are silos. And again, we want to take care of our own people. And so we figure this out, but there's so much cooperation, particularly in the world of sales, that decisions that we make are decisions that are needed for us transcend all of these boundaries. And so what I would say is figuring out a way to have these more open conversations with your organization so that you're realizing you're all in this together. And it may not feel that the HR department or the sales finance or the ops department or what have you are all like, they're all trying to help you from different perspectives solve this problem. That's one of the challenges leaders at major organizations will have, is that they high revenue, big global 50 companies, is that they realize the problems at hand, but they don't realize that a lot of times their solutions lie across the organization. And so just open that up and figure out ways that collectively you're all in it together to build out the betterment of your organization.
In other words, everyone should just go golf together.
That is a great way to do it, for sure.
All right. I like it. Maybe I should be the golf whisperer.
Perhaps you should.
What do you think, huh? The whiskey whisperer. I'm have to look that up real quick.
The Scotch and golf whisperer.
Scotch, golf, wine, beer, bourbon. It's all good. It's all good.
And blackjack. You're good.
Yeah, I'm mediocre at blackjack. I'm not a great gambler. I was lying to you in the beginning. You brought it out of me. I confess. All right. But hey, if you do come out, let me know. We'll take
Absolutely.
You. Take your wine tasting. We're a member of Wilson Creek. Been a great winery out here over the years. And it's been a great interview. So Jason Lowe, all the way from LA. Thanks for coming on Sales Podcast, man.
Time. Thank you, sir. Take care now.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Gut, feel, and institutional knowledge still have value, but so does data-driven analyses. That's a big sentence there. As entrepreneurs, I see it all the time. Small businesses, they go with that gut feel, and it's good. It's good to have it, but you need to understand its limitations. Typically, the person that's, you get paralysis by analysis never launches. But conversely, the entrepreneur has no problem with launching, but then you're not optimizing. You may be sticking with something too long. You may not be adding the upsells and the add-ons and the complementary offerings that can maximize your revenue. You got to have both. And so I really liked his approach here. Find that universal truth. Find your one thing. Knock down the silos in your organization. And you can have a very small business and still have silos. I got hit with that years ago with the team that I thought I was building, but I had someone building their own team within the team. It can happen to anybody. It happens far too often. It's human nature. So don't bemoan it. Just understand it. As Reagan said, trust but verify. You got to do that in all aspects of your business. Trust your vendors, but verify. Trust your customers, but verify. Trust everyone, but verify that they're doing what they're doing. Okay, you got to approach things that way. So I loved the different approaches he had, the timeless sales books. You've heard me mention spin selling so many times, cracking the sales management code. I'm going to go check that out. The Challenger Sale. I'm working with companies that book has been coming up. It's been mentioned to me several times in the last couple of years. So there's value in all this. Read these books, listen to these episodes, but apply. That's why I always ask my guests at the end, what's one thing you can do? What can you apply after listening to this? I don't want you to just listen and nod. I want you to apply. If it's the measurement side of things, then get better at that. I've always talked about, whatever you can measure, you can improve. Right? W. Edward Deming talked about that. Henry Ford probably talked about it. I think he did. But obviously, whatever you can measure, you can improve. That goes way back. What are you measuring? What are you not measuring? What are you sweeping under the rug? What are you ignoring? What are you doing that's comfortable, right? But maybe not important. We all get stuck in that. It's easy to get in those ruts. That's where having a coach, having a mentor, having a mastermind group, having somebody that keeps you accountable will help you achieve 2 and 5 and 10 and 20x what you could do alone. So surround yourself with people that are pushing you. Surround yourself with people that know better. I'm speaking with a family friend. He's trying to make some decisions. He has access to everything that he needs to succeed, but he's running away from it. And I had this discussion golly, it's going to bug me now. Forget who it was. But we're talking about, are people afraid of success or are they afraid of failure? And, of course, a lot of people are afraid of failing, afraid of looking silly. But I think more people are afraid of success. They're afraid of growing beyond their current comfort zone. You're part of a bowling league. You're on a softball team. You got a regular crew you run to the lake with and go water skiing and drink beer. And you're afraid of growing beyond that. And I think that's what holds us back. I know that's what's holding this young man back. His family and friends who are, there's no gentle way to put it. I mean, they're marginally successful. They're part of the mediocre majority. And they're encouraging him to go a different path rather than the entrepreneurial path that he's already well established in and moving in the right direction and accelerating. And they want him to change courses because it's the common thing. It's what everybody does. And it's sad to see. Hopefully I'll have an impact on him. I didn't pull any punches this morning speaking with him. You need to surround yourself with people that have your best interests at heart, but also understand the ramifications, the gotchas, the obstacles, and the opportunities down the different paths. It's not enough to just have your best interest. It's in my video on my Contact Us page or About Us page. I talk about, my great-grandfather. I was 21, almost 22 when he died. And, no, how old was I? No, I was in a little bit older than that. He was in his 90s. And I remember sitting on his front porch and he was talking about, getting a job with a good pension. Because he drew a pension longer than he worked, and he would sit there and chuckle. Jasper, Texas, sitting on the front porch swing. So he had my best interest at heart. But, in the early 90s when I was sitting there with him and, he's giving me that advice, he had no idea what was coming. I had no idea what was coming. In the early 90s, I did not like computers. I did not own a computer other than what the Air Force Academy had issued me. And I only used that to get the homework done. Hated them. Now here we are in 2018, and I've made my living off of helping people with technology. Certainly selling it since 2000 and selling software as a service since 2006. So it's crazy how things change. So he had my best interest at heart, but he didn't know the different paths, the different options. So surround yourself with good people, all right? And I think you'll find those good people in the Make Every Sale program, makeeverysale.com. Sign up now. Get the live 7-week course, plus the bonus calls I'll do, just the office hours. You get the 41 videos right away, the workbook, the templates, the scripts, and then the private group. Ask your questions. If I'm not recording an episode of the sales podcast or working with a client, I'm online and can answer those questions for you. So you'll get near real-time support from me and the other members. And it's super affordable. It's kind of embarrassingly affordable. But hey, you can join the webinar. We can talk about that. Or just go sign up. You have a money-back guarantee. Okay? Now go sell something.